What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the office. Beautiful June day. This is a audio-only podcast, so you guys that normally watch it on the YouTubes, sorry. Anyway, it's been a while. I have been very busy. If you've been following on the socials, you saw that I was in Mexico, and I've been out of town, taking a little time off doing, some vacation-y type stuff. I've just been getting run into the ground lately and needed some time. If everybody's going to be mad at me for being slow on getting jobs done, I might as well do some stuff for my sanity anyway. So anyway, appreciate you guys for listening. Still have the Patreon if you guys want to donate over there, Patreon, or if you want to donate on the social medias. I do have a subscription on Instagram, so there's that. You can donate. It's a couple bucks a month, whatever. Appreciate it for sure. So gonna talk about the 1310. If you aren't familiar, please head over to YouTube. I have a video there of a detailed walk around and explanation video of the 1310 Travelette that I built for Mexico. Not just me, we built. Had a lot of help from friends and whatnot. But recap that, I'm really talking about it this time just more in depth because there was some stuff I wanted to cover that I was having a hard time getting into a YouTube video that would be interesting and keep people engaged. Because that's the problem with YouTube, is that you'll make a 45-minute long video and then you check the analytics and people will watch it for 3 minutes. And so it's tough. It's tough to justify doing those things when, that's the kind of response you get. So I just, I figured here, you guys are more dedicated and actually care or more interested in what's going on. So I'll put it out here and then maybe fine tune it for a video later. But the 1310 Travelette short bed, it's a 1-ton. It was 2-wheel drive when we started. Had no motor, no drivetrain. It was an automatic at the time, originally. Brought it in. I had a 392 and a T34, which is the overdrive 5-speed. I ran the 392 on the stand. I thought it was good. We ended up putting it in the truck and then going through the initial steps, running it, making sure the electricals work, that sort of stuff, and started noticing that it was making exhaust bubbles in the overflow bottle. And, at first you're like, oh, maybe it's air, whatever. But after a couple heat and cool cycles and topping off the coolant and making sure everything is good, it was still making steady bubbles. And 392s are notorious for head cracking. And I know people like to argue with me. There's some guys on the internet that are pretty respected as far as that goes, but I think they're also coasting on a reputation of 20 years ago. And I can tell you that stuff changes in 20 years. Scouts that used to be rust free 20 years ago are rusty now. So stuff ages, things wear out. Time will ruin stuff, and usage will ruin them. So, in 1981, your improved cooling 392 may have been a workhorse animal that, hauled 40,000 pounds of gravel every day and you ran it and whatever. But you add another 40 years of use, neglect, fatigue, terrible maintenance, whatever, and stuff goes bad. It really does. And so what I'm seeing on my end, and maybe it's just anecdotal, is that these 392s are starting to have problems. We get called every week from some machine shop looking for a 392 head. It's just what it is. It's not something I'm making up. My own experience with 392s is that they like to crack. I've had several here with cracked heads. So anyway, I thought I got lucky with this 392. It supposedly been rebuilt. Turns out it may have been, but they rebuilt it with a bad head. I've also never had an International blow out a head gasket. They always ruin the head. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's a lot harder to blow out a head gasket on an International, I think. But anyway, so had to do an emergency engine swap with a 345 that we had out of a truck in the yard. Turned out it was actually a really good motor. And then, we have the Dana 60 rear in it, and then we swapped in a Dana 44 front, put the disc brakes on it. I also have disc brakes in the rear. This truck stops really well. I really like it. It's not Hydro Boost, just has the factory vacuum booster, but it's got the 4-wheel disc Corvette Master with the 4-wheel disc proportioning block. It stops good. So anyway, the truck with this, we put a service bed on it. It's got my rack, just was set up. I scaled it when I headed out of town for Mexico, and it came in at like 7,200 pounds. So it's not light by any stretch. Not the heaviest truck on the road either. But what I found interesting and what was kind of disappointed in, I think, was it has 456 axle gears and 35-inch tall tires. And you put those together, and that sounds good on paper. The problem I was running into was the truck does not have enough horsepower to pull overdrive. It just going down the road. If I want to do 70, I have to put my foot pretty much all the way to the floor for it to maintain 70 on the freeway. And, all right, yeah, no big deal, does 70. But the problem is with your foot on the floor the entire time, you get like 6 miles to the gallon. And that's what I experienced coming back from Mexico. It's not perfectly flat. I-5 through California is rolling hills. There was a little bit of wind at sometimes, and I did have my rooftop tent was on the back, but it wasn't up high up in the air. I mean, it was kind of, but it was still it was about the same height as the roof line. So not sticking up obnoxious, but, also it was up there hitting some wind, but I could not maintain 70. It just, whatever reason, full throttle. And I actually ran out of gas once because I thought I was getting better mileage than I was. And, so I ended up being in 4th gear, and then I was just running at like $3,000 all the time to maintain 65-ish, which it didn't mind it. It ran that temp. I ran that RPM, and the engine temps were fine, and oil pressure's good. Everything was good. I was having to run it really high, and I don't like that. Like, I don't mind running, 2,500, 2,700, I guess. But when you're just screaming along at $3,000, like, the motor's making a bunch of noise, exhaust is droning, it's just a lot going on. And, it just, I don't know, it just kind of wears on me. But the thing is like, I'll just switch to 488s. Well, if I switch to 488s, it might as well go the other way and put in, 410s and run a 4-speed, like, or 410s and then run a T36 direct drive 5-speed, because then I'd have a low gear for crawling around and then have the other 4 for going down the road. Like going to a deeper axle gear, going to 488s, just I feel like negates the whole overdrive idea in the first place. So yeah, I mean, I'm a little disappointed. I do use the 5th gear still, when I'm going downhill or coasting, or, I've got whatever. I'll use 5th, but really it's kind of not useful in my setup. If I had smaller tires, or if the truck was lighter, or maybe more horsepower, if I had a 392 that was at full potential and had, whatever, maybe it would be better. But with this motor, it's not what I hoped it would be. And that's the thing. I see people on Facebook, they're like, oh, I need a T34 for my project because I want to put it behind a 6-cylinder. I'm like, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think you're going to have enough horsepower. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, it takes horsepower to turn gears. And then it also takes horsepower to push the brick through the wind, because they're not aerodynamic. But I don't know, maybe if you put it in a C series that had the curves that might help fight the wind. And then, if you had it in a 2-wheel drive lowered rig that has better aerodynamics and was lighter, it might be a better transmission. But in my application, with the axle gears that I have and the tire size and whatever, it doesn't work for me. And there's people that argue about it, and that's fine. That their experience is their experience and my experience is my experience. And there's so many variables. You can't just build one thing for everybody and think it's going to be the same all the time. I do a lot of driving. I do a lot of this stuff, and sometimes we're using junk. Sometimes, this 345 runs great, but it might be, it might only have 105 pounds of compression on each cylinder and only make, 100 horsepower at the wheels. Okay. Maybe, I don't know, but at the same time, you still got to have horsepower. You still got to go down the road. And, if I have to have 200 horse just to make use of this extra gear, I don't know if it's worth it for me or not. We're kicking around the idea of swapping in an 8.1 and an Allison just to make it more functional. If I'm going to get 10 miles to the gallon, I might as well get 10 miles to the gallon going 100 instead of struggling to do 70. So we're kicking that idea around. Or, the cowboy truck is definitely on its last legs mechanically. So we got to pull the Cummins out of it for a full reseal, probably rebuild anyways. It needs it. It's got 500 plus thousand, and it's starting to smoke, and it's rattling. It's leaking out of everywhere, that kind of thing. So if we're going to pull the drivetrain out of the cowboy truck, maybe we just swing it right into the Travelette. Not my favorite idea, especially with my track record with Cumminses, but the Cummins in the cowboy truck, being all stock, has actually been very reliable. Several lift pumps, several water pumps, the accessory wearables. I mean, I get that, those have had to be replaced several times, but the motor overall has been pretty reliable. It's got a bunch of broken brackets and things from just shaking itself to death. But, that's the thing, is maybe we swap that in instead. I don't know. I'm more leaning towards the 8.1 and the Allison, just because you get the 6-speed with the double overdrive, really helps make up for the 456 axle gears. Because I really don't want to do a drivetrain swap and still have to re-gear it. That's just another layer of work that I'm not sure I want to get into. because 456s and 35-inch tires is definitely a respectable arrangement. It's not like I see these guys running 35s and 354s, or they go the other way and they're running 35s and 589s because they think they need crawler gears. So I don't know. I'm on the fence still with that. There's a few things that we got to shake out. Like I still have a drive shaft vibration that's bothering me. It starts humming pretty good above 65, 60, 65. It's pretty evident. Need a better front drive shaft. The one we threw in there was something we just pulled out of the yard, and it's stretched out to max length, and I'm not a fan of that. I have the 345 in there, I've got a fuel injection company that wants to send me a unit to test and do a little bit of I don't know, social media work for them. It's not a Holley sniper. So we'll see. I don't want to be one of these guys that just runs everything that someone sends me because it's free. I really would rather use products that we can trust and know, and I can put my word behind and know that it's good. And that's why I like the snipers so much. But I don't know, this new system coming in, it looks really interesting. I kind of want to give it a shot, see. It's got some features that are better than the sniper as far as the RF interference and some of the electrical stuff. But it is its own thing. Like it's hard to say. I want to get it in here. I don't want to say what it is yet until I get a chance to unbox it and check it out. But yeah, so I'm going to put this injection system on the 345, see if I can't pick up a horsepower or two. So I'll back up a little bit. 345 is old, greasy, whatever. It has a Pertronix and it has a 2300 Holley 2-barrel carburetor on it right now. That's all it's got. It's got no performance updates. It's got a, stock paper air filter, new cap, new rotor, new wires, like basic tune-up stuff, but there's no cam, there's no headers. It's running a single exhaust, a 2-into-1 through a 40 series Flowmaster. It's pretty basic, mechanical fan with a fan clutch on it. Nothing earth shattering for sure. So I'm not expecting to pick up too much power with this injection system, but I would like to see if the cleaned up fuel tables and just a little bit more, efficiency. If I can just pick up a little bit more efficiency, it might add a few more horsepowers and maybe will make it a little bit more enjoyable to drive. Because the funny thing about the T34 is it has almost the same gear ratios as a NV 4500. The third to fourth split is really similar. It has a lot of similarities to the NV 4500. And that's what the cowboy truck has. And yeah, it has the third to fourth jump isn't my favorite, even in that truck, but it's got the horsepower to pull that gap. And so maybe if I have a few more horsepowers, it won't seem like a big deal in the Travelette either. I don't know. I'm not expecting anything earth shattering, but I am curious to see if adding a injection system would make it a little more powerful. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's going to get drivetrain swapped. If we go back to Mexico next year, I don't think that's going to happen. But if we're in Mexico next year, I really want to chase with this truck. We didn't get to chase the race with it this year because it was too slow. Did not have the horsepower, did not have the ability to keep up with the race pace. So, next year I want to show up and I want to have the power. I want to have, the outfit that I need to make it the best chase truck possible. I feel bad still for taking it down there and not working out. But I didn't know, it's just what it is now. Appreciate Sean for having the patience with me to do that, give me the chance to test it out and event, ultimately figured out that it needed a few more miles of break-in or testing before it would be chase ready. But anyway, I learned and I'd like to build this truck. The other thing is it could flip 180 degrees here, and I could pull the service bed off, put the short bed back on it, and sell it as a, project truck for somebody else. I don't know. The way that the finances go around here and the way that money comes and goes and the way that I get messages from people that are like, if you do this or you do that, I will buy that truck or I will do this. So, I might get somebody that messages me and says, hey, I've got 30 grand. I love that truck. If it had a regular bed on it, I would buy it from you tomorrow. And maybe I, make that happen. And it has happened in the past. That's why you'll see me sell stuff that sometimes people are like, I didn't even know he had that. Well, it's because it was my personal hidden, out of the way. And somebody called or made an offer or whatever. And I, everything's for sale eventually. It just takes a lot of money. So you never know. You never know what might happen with this truck. But tentatively, that's the plan, is just to keep tinkering, keep building it, keep making it better, keep improving it. And then, it might replace a truck someday. Because there is a point where the red truck, the 64 Travelette, it's going to go down for restoration. That truck is probably one of the forever keepers. And it's rusty. It's a typical International. The cab is blown apart at the rear seam where the back of the cab meets the floor. The cowl vents are rotted all the way through. The cowl on the hood side is rusted. The hood is starting to rust. The bed is rusted through at the pinch welds all the way around. It's really showing its age. It lived in the valley its whole life in the rainy part of Oregon, and it shows. And so, eventually it's going to need restoration. And I would think that if I take that truck down to resto, that I would have this green truck, 1310, to keep using throughout. And then, of course, the black truck, the Eagle, that's the hauler, that's the tow rig. I kind of like giving it a break. I've put so many miles on the black truck over the last couple of years that it's starting to show road fatigue as well. Like, all the doors are out of adjustment now. The back doors are a pain to shut sometimes because they've sagged or started, I don't know what. They're just settling. The body mounts are starting to eat themselves up. The rubber parts, not the steel parts. But the front inner fenders, I've got the hood hinge rot going on now. I've had this truck for 10 years, and now it's starting to happen. Little things like that. It's just, the road is just hard on it. I need to put another windshield in it. This will be windshield number 3. So yeah, it's one of those things that I kind of like having a driver that I'm not putting a ton of miles on the Eagle truck and whatever. I don't know. I can only drive them one at a time, and I can't have all of them. So I'm kind of torn on what I do with this stuff, because I've got the 61 1000. It's a short bed, 2-wheel drive, V8, 4-speed cruiser. I'd love to get that on the road and have that as the shop truck, like a decent mileage, easy to drive shop truck. And then I wouldn't have to drive these Travelettes everywhere and all that. But then you're like, well, the Travelettes are fun to drive and they get lots of attention and they work well. And so maybe I just keep driving those. And it's definitely a first world problem, especially in this industry. What do I do with my solid gold rocket car? It's tough. So anyway, I know that's a long rambly way around of saying I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah. So the green truck, it's got some charms. The doors shut amazing. Josie's recovered the seat. She's going to redo the front seat. They're really comfortable. It's quieter than all the other Travelettes. We rehabbed all the doors and, dynamatted everything. So it's actually really pretty nice. I would call the interior like 80% done. It needs a few more things to what I would be considered done. Definitely needs a stereo. Mechanically it's really there. I'm just chipping away at some stuff. It needs a parking brake. Get rid of the drive shaft vibe. Otherwise mechanically it's pretty good. Overall wiring, everything works, heater works, lights work, all that stuff. So yeah, it's just chipping away at little stuff and reminding myself that I do love them and do enjoy them, but there's always something to do with them. So I don't know, but I'm sure I'll hear from you guys in the comments and stuff or social medias, but whatever. I think I'm going to hang it up here. It's been fun. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for your comments and suggestions and all of the love and support. Can't do it without you guys. So until next time, I'm Dan, Binder Boneyard.